Assalamualaikum class. Welcome to another lecture. Today you will learn about punctuation. I would advise you all to watch this video carefully and make notes because most of you don't know how to use punctuations. I remember reading your introductions and being completely shocked because most of you didn't even know how to use a full stop, and that is literally the most easiest one to learn. Let's start with the lecture right away. Why is punctuation important? It helps to indicate the pauses and the emphasis on certain ideas or thoughts. Using the correct punctuation helps you convey your ideas exactly as you intend them. They help you express yourself clearly in writing. First one is period or full stop. This dot that you see on the top, that is a full stop. A period or full stop is a punctuation mark in English that expresses the end of a sentence and sometimes abbreviations. It is one of the most useful punctuation marks and the most common way to conclude a sentence. Full stops are used to end a sentence when that sentence has expressed a complete thought or idea. They are only used to end sentences which are statements, not questions or exclamations. इसका मतलब ये है कि हम full stop sentence के end में लगाते हैं जब हमने अपनी बात complete कर ली हो. And I was shocked आपके introductions पढ़ के कि आप लोगों को बिल्कुल नहीं पता था कि full stop किस लिए यूज़ होता है. किसी ने sentence के middle में लगाया हुआ है और कुछ ने तो एक sentence में कोई 5-6 बार लगाया हुआ था. तो दैट वॉज़ वेरी शॉकिंग. जस्ट रिमेंबर कि ये हमेशा सेंटेंस के एंड में लगाया जाता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आई होप टू सी यू सून. बात ख़त्म हो गई. नाउ वी आर प्लेसिंग ए फुल स्टॉप एट द एंड. आई रिसीव्ड योर लेटर. अगेन we've completed the thought that we wanted to express, and now we are placing full stop at the end to conclude this sentence. Use a period after most abbreviations and initials. If an abbreviation comes at the end of a sentence, do not add another period. इसका मतलब ये है कि जो पीरियड है वो एब्रीविएशंस और इनिशियल्स के बाद आता है, और अगर कभी ऐसा हो जाए कि एब्रीविएशन सेंटेंस का आखिरी वर्ड हो तो आपने 2 मरतबा पीरियड नहीं लगा देना, सिर्फ 1 मरतबा ही लगाना है. Let's take a look at these examples. The letters DR is a written abbreviation for doctor. So we place a dot at the end. Same as with the abbreviation Miss. We place a period after it. The abbreviation of etc., that is ETC, we place a period after it. Same with initials John F. Kennedy. We placed a period after the initial F. Next step is question mark. A question mark, also known as an interrogation point or interrogation mark, is a punctuation mark that is used to indicate that a sentence is a question. यानी कि हम question mark तब लगाते हैं जब हम कोई question पूछते हैं. Use a question mark after a question. For example, where is the car? Will the store be open late tonight? Who told you that? These are all questions, and we are placing question mark at the end to indicate that it is a question. Third one is comma. A comma is a punctuation mark that indicates a smaller break. They are used to separate words, clauses, or ideas within a sentence. They tell us how to read and understand sentences because they tell us where to pause. Commas are the most frequently used marks of punctuation in English. Comma के काफ़ी सारे uses हैं. ये sentence के different हिस्सों को separate करता है. ये हमें बताता है कि हमने कहाँ पे ठहरना है. It has quite a few uses, so we'll take a look at them one by one. You can use a comma to set off parts of a sentence. For example, the game was over, but the crowd refused to leave. Here, the comma is indicating a small break between the two parts of the sentences. So, when you'll read it like this: the game was over, but the crowd refused to leave. If you notice, I took a small break where the comma is placed. It kind of guides you where you need to pause a bit. The movie was sold out, so we decided to have an early dinner. So here the comma is indicating that this sentence has two parts, and also it's guiding us as to where we have to pause. Use a comma after introductory and concluding expressions. For example, yes, I will go to the party. Here we placed a comma after yes for the pause and also to separate them. We will do the same if we use no. No, I will not go to the party. We will place a comma after no. I don't know if you have observed, but when we write letters or emails, we always use a comma after concluding expressions such as yours truly and sincerely. You can use a comma after interrupting words and expressions. For example, Elizabeth II, who was born in 1926 in London, is the Queen of England. Here, the comma is used to interrupt the sentence to add additional information in between. John, who is 55, retired last month. Here, the main thing that we wanted to communicate was John retired last month, but we interrupted this sentence using commas to add additional information who is 55. So, you can use commas in this way. Let's take a look at last example. Nancy, please clean up your room. Use a comma to separate items in a list. The comma before and in a series of items is optional. It means that whenever you're listing things, you have to place comma in between to separate them. For example, Julie loves ice cream, books, and kittens. Here we are listing three things: ice cream, books, and kittens. So we are placing commas to separate these words. There's a comma after ice cream, there's a comma after books and kittens. Now the comma before and is optional. You can put it or don't put it, it's okay either way. Julie loves ice cream, books, and kittens. So in the next line, you can see that we didn't place the comma before and. So either way, it's right. Use commas to prevent misreading or to clarify any potentially confusing sentences. There are certain sentences that can become quite confusing. So commas kind of help us avoid those misunderstandings or avoid misreading. For example, I like cooking dogs and kids. If we don't place any commas in this sentence, it seems like I like cooking dogs and kids. But if I place comma in this sentence, then that can clarify that misunderstanding. See the next line? I like cooking, comma, dogs and kids. Now you can clearly see that I meant that I like three different things: cooking, dogs, and kids. Not that I like cooking dogs and kids. So, this example shows you that commas are very, very important if you want to avoid misunderstanding or any confusion. You have to place comma between the day of the month and the year. For example, December 7, comma, 1941. So you have to place a comma between the day of the month and the year. July 20, comma, 1969. Lastly, comma can be used to separate the parts of an address. For example, Liberty Square, F11 Marcus, Islamabad. So we are separating each part of the address with a comma. This is a mistake that most of you made in your introductions. You forgot to add commas when you were talking about the address of your school or college or even your village. Okay, next up we have apostrophe. An apostrophe is a punctuation mark that is used to show possession, omitted letters, and plural forms. An apostrophe resembles a slanted mark or a dot with a tail. Typically, it is identical in appearance to the comma, but is placed at the top of a line of text or writing rather than at the bottom. Apostrophe पोजेशन शो करने के लिए जब लेटर्स हमने कहीं से ओमिट किए हों, स्किप किए हों या प्लूरल फॉर्म्स के लिए यूज़ होता है और ये देखने में बिल्कुल कॉमा की तरह होता है, बट कॉमा को हम लाइन के बॉटम पे यूज़ करते हैं, बट अपॉस्ट्रॉफी को हम हमेशा टेक्स्ट के ऊपर टॉप पे यूज़ करते हैं. Like comma, apostrophe has a lot of uses. You can use an apostrophe to show possession, ownership. So basically, you use apostrophe s when you're talking about someone's possession, and this is something that almost every one of you forgot to do. This was the reoccurring mistake that I saw in your introductions. For example, one of you wrote, "My father's name is this," but you forgot to add apostrophe s after the word father. So that is an issue, so please be careful about that. Let's take a look at these examples. Someone's wish. Because this wish is someone's, we are using apostrophe s to indicate whose wish it is. Then we have James's car. Now, what happens when the word ends with s? Then you have two ways that you can go about it. You can either use apostrophe s or you can just use apostrophe. You don't have to use s. But this is something you can only do if the word is singular, not plural. If the word is plural, then you don't have that option. You only have to use apostrophe. Let's take a look at this last example. Cats. Now the word cats is plural. It ends with s. You're gonna use apostrophe. You don't have the same option that you had with the word James. James, it was a singular word. That's why we had the option. We could choose either of those. But when a word is plural, then you are only gonna be using the apostrophe. You can use an apostrophe to show plural forms. Use an apostrophe and s to show the plural of a number, symbol, letter, or word. For example, Emily got straight A's on her report card. It could be he got straight B's on his report card. You can use an apostrophe to show where a letter or number has been omitted. We usually use it with contractions. For example, cannot. Cannot's contraction is can't. And when we omit n and o, we use apostrophe for the contraction. The same with I will. When we use its contraction, I'll, we indicate the omission of letters by using apostrophe. The same is with all the contractions like couldn't, should have, hasn't, etc. And you can also use apostrophe to indicate where the number has been omitted. For example, the 70s. We don't say 1970, we say 70s. The 90s, instead of saying 1990, we say 90s. The next punctuation is parenthesis. Parentheses or round brackets are used to set off non essential information. In essence, the information in the parentheses is a non essential modifier because it gives the reader additional information that is not crucial. हम parenthesis तब यूज़ करते हैं जब हमने information ऐड करनी होती है बट वो information important या essential नहीं होती, तो हम उससे separate ये round bracket curved bracket में include कर देते हैं. Parentheses always come in pairs, an opening bracket before the extra information and a closing bracket after it. यानी ये हमेशा पेयर में होते हैं, दो ब्रैकेट्स होती हैं जो कि स्टार्ट में लगती है, फिर उसके बाद इंफॉर्मेशन आती है, फिर उसको क्लोज करने के लिए एक और ब्रैकेट आ जाती है जिसे क्लोजिंग ब्रैकेट कहते हैं. यानी फर्स्ट जो होती है उसे ओपनिंग ब्रैकेट और जो एंड में लगाते हैं उसे क्लोजिंग ब्रैकेट कहते हैं. You can use it to add clarification or explanation. For example, Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, resigned from office in 2007. Now, the main sentence is Tony Blair resigned from office in 2007, but many of the people might not know who Tony Blair is, so we are adding a small explanation in the brackets that he is a former British Prime Minister. So, these parentheses allow us to add some non-essential extra information or clarification without disrupting the sentence. Use parentheses to enclose additional information in a sentence. For example, capitalize all proper nouns and proper adjectives. See chapter 11. So, if this sentence is written in a book, the information see chapter 11 tells us to go see that chapter if you want additional, more in-depth detail about what has been said in the sentence. So we are giving an additional information, and I used it a lot in my thesis. I would write the thorough analysis of this novel shows, but because I don't want to disrupt my sentence, I would put parentheses and tell them to go see page number this. For example, page number 96 if they want any additional information regarding what I had said. In a way, it helps us direct people where they can go seek additional information. Use parentheses to enclose numbers or letters. For example, to prepare spaghetti, follow these steps in order. 1. Bring a pot of lightly salted water to boil. 2. Add pasta. 3rd, cook for about 10 minutes. So here we needed to number the steps. So we place the numbers within parentheses. You can use them to indicate plural or singular. For example, please leave your mobile telephone at the door. Here the word telephone can function as both singular or plural. If we just look at the word telephone, it's of course singular, but if we look at the S in parentheses, it becomes plural. So it is there in case there are multiple telephones. Lastly, parentheses can be used to define abbreviations. For example, the matter will be decided by the IOC, and within parentheses, we have used the complete proper noun, International Olympic Committee. The same with all the other organizations, for example, WHO, and within parentheses, World Health Organization. The same thing we do with the name of institutes and different organizations. So parentheses are used to enclose the full name of the organization in case the people don't know what the abbreviation stands for. So it's kind of to clarify that. Now we are gonna learn about brackets. Brackets or square brackets are used mainly in quotations to add extra information that wasn't in the original quote. Brackets are square. Do not confuse them with parentheses which are curved like this. इसका मतलब ये है कि स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट्स अगेन एक्स्ट्रा इंफॉर्मेशन ऐड करने के लिए यूज़ होती हैं जो कि ओरिजिनल कोट में नहीं थी. Just to clarify, if you don't know, quotation is something that someone else has said and you enclose it within quotation marks. Now I know that you might be feeling confused between brackets and parentheses, but the difference between both is that parentheses are used to add information in any sentence, but brackets specifically are used to add extra information within quotation, within what someone else has said. They can be used to add clarification. For example, the witness said, he, the policeman, hit me. Now, here we are talking about something the witness said. So, it has become a quotation, okay? Because it is within quotation marks. Now, we want to clarify who is this person, he. So in the brackets we've written the policeman. We are clarifying who the witness is talking about. He, the policeman, hit me. Because it is direct speech, the witness is saying he hit me. We want to clarify to you, me as a writer want to clarify to you who's reading, who this he is, who this person is, who is this person that witness is talking about. So I am clarifying within the brackets the policeman. This is something I've written, not the witness has said. It indicates that I'm the one who has added this extra information. This information was not part of the quotation. It wasn't something that the witness said. It is something that I've added. You can use brackets to enclose words that you insert in a quotation. For example, he loves driving. This is something I had to do a lot when I was writing my thesis because sometimes quotes just don't fit within a sentence that you're trying to write. So you kind of have to modify the quote a little bit, but you have to indicate that you are the one who's modifying it. So whatever you add, you have to add it within brackets. Now the original words were I love driving. So this person said I love driving, and I want to tell you that he loves driving. Now if I write he loved driving, that is of course grammatically incorrect. So I'm adding s after love to make it grammatically correct. I am adding the word s within brackets. You can also use it to add missing words. For example, it is good question. Now it is good question doesn't sound right. So we are adding the word a within the brackets. We needed the article a, so we placed it within the brackets. So that indicates that we are the ones who have modified it. Next up, we have quotation marks. Now, there are single quotation marks and single quotation marks, and we'll learn about them later. For now, let's see what quotation marks are. Quotation marks are a type of punctuation used to show direct quotes, dialogue, and certain titles, or otherwise to set aside words in text. Quotation marks हम तब यूज़ करते हैं हम जब डायरेक्टली किसी की कोट लेते हैं, डायलॉग लेते हैं, या किसी बुक या सॉन्ग के टाइटल्स डायरेक्टली लिखते हैं, या हम कोई एक वर्ड है जिससे हम एम्फेसिस देना चाहते हैं सेंटेंस में, तब यूज़ करते हैं. Use quotation marks to set off a speaker's exact words. For example, did you eat the entire bag of chips? Debbie asked. Now, here what Debbie said has been put in quotation marks. Quotation marks indicate that this is what the exact words of that person were. You know, when we take quotations from some book or poem and everything, we always place them within quotation marks to indicate that they are direct quotes from some place. These are not our words. You can also use quotation marks for titles of short works such as poems, essays, songs, short stories, and magazine articles. For example, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. It's a short story and we place the name of the short story within quotation marks. It's the story's title. Again, Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's an essay. We place the title of this essay, that is Self-Reliance, within quotation marks. We've only just begun by Carpenters. It's a song, it's the name of a song, and we've placed it within quotation marks. Now, those were the uses of double quotation marks. Now, let's see how you can use single quotation mark. You can use single quotation marks to draw attention to a certain word for emphasis. For example, the word book can be used as a noun or a verb. Now, here the word book um, has been placed within single quotation marks, and the reason for that is to draw attention to that word, to highlight that word within this sentence, because this word is important. So this is the difference. You use double quotation when you directly quote from someone, and you use single quotation marks when you just want to draw attention, when it is not a quote and you just want to draw attention to a certain word. Next up, we have colon. The colon is a punctuation mark visually consisting of two equally sized dots, one on top of each other, like this. A colon means that is to say, or here's what I mean. A colon is used to give emphasis, present dialogue, introduce list or text, and clarify composition titles. कोलन के काफ़ी सारे यूजेस हैं एम्फेसिस के लिए यूज़ किया जाता है कई बार डायलॉग के लिए अगर आपने कोई लिस्ट इंट्रोड्यूस करवानी है उसके लिए या बहुत सारी कोई डिटेल में चीज़ डिस्क्राइब करनी है उसके लिए और डिफरेंट चीज़ों के लिए तो अभी हम देखते हैं You can use a colon after an independent clause to introduce a list. Remember that an independent clause is a complete sentence. Now, there are many parts of a sentence, right, that are separated by commas. If there is a part that can become if you take the whole sentence apart and see if there is a part that can stand alone as a sentence, as a complete sentence, it is independent clause. For example, if you really want to lose weight, you must give up the following sweets: cake, pie, candy, and cookies. Now here, when we want to introduce a list, we add colon and then introduce a list. You can also use a colon after an independent clause to introduce a quotation. For example, Robert Lawson speaks impatiently of the good intentions that direct the current trends in children's book. So this is a independent clause. After that, we want to place what Robert Lawson has said, like his direct quotation. So we are adding colon and then placing his direct quotation after that. You can also use a colon before the part of a sentence that explains what has just been stated. For example, our store has a fixed policy. We will not be undersold. Now here, our store has a fixed policy is a sentence. After that, we've placed colon And then we have explained what this part of the sentence means. Our store has a fixed policy. Here we are talking about some policy. After that we have placed colon, and now we are explaining what that policy is. We will not be undersold. So first part of the sentence is talking about a certain thing, and the second part of the sentence that comes after the colon explains or elaborates on that first part. Now let's jump on to semicolon. A semicolon is a comma and a period combined like this. The semicolon's structure shows you that the semicolon is a hybrid of a comma and a period. A semicolon is most commonly used to link two independent clauses that are closely related in thought. इसका मतलब ये है कि सेमीकोलन दो इंडिपेंडेंट क्लॉजेस को जोड़ने के लिए यूज़ होता है, और उन दोनों इंडिपेंडेंट क्लॉजेस में ऐसी बात हो रही होती है जो कि रिलेटेड होती है, यानी कि वो है इंडिपेंडेंट क्लॉजेस, ठीक है, बट वो उन दोनों में जो बात हो रही है वो बहुत ही क्लोजली रिलेटेड है, सेम चीज़ के बारे में बात हो रही है. You can use a semicolon to demonstrate a relationship between two complete sentences. For example, now here we have two complete sentences and we have used semicolon to link them. Good grades are integral to student success. A strong support network is also important. Here in both sentences what we are talking about is that what is important for a student's success. In the first sentence we are talking about good grades, and in the second we are talking about a strong support network. Both are integral to a student's success. So they are, even though they are separate sentences, they are complete in itself, complete in themselves. They are very related because they are talking about the same thing. So we are using a semicolon to link them both. If one or more elements in a series contain a comma, use semicolons to separate them. Sometimes sentences can become way too long and there are way too many commas. So we use semicolons to kind of reduce the confusion. We kind of separate them into different parts. Members of Western Jazz Club are Tom, bassist, Trent, saxophonist, Steve, pianist, and Tim, drummer. Now, if we had not used semicolons and just commas, it would have become extremely confusing. It would have become a list, you know. So here we are placing semicolon after we have talked about each member. We are first talking about Tom, who's a bassist. Then we place semicolon. Then we're talking about Trent, who's a saxophonist. Then again we are placing semicolon. Then Steve, who's a pianist, right? And then Tim, who's a drummer. So we are placing semicolon instead of commas to separate the information. Let's take a look at this example to clarify the difference between semicolon and colons, because it can be very confusing. If you guys remember, we discussed this example before. To prepare spaghetti, follow these steps in order. Then we have colon. First, bring a pot of lightly salted water to boil. Second, add pasta. 3. Cook for about 10 minutes. We first use colon after order because we are about to elaborate and we are about to list all the steps. So we used colon. After that, since all the steps are related with each other, but we do wanna separate them to avoid any confusion. We don't want to use commas. We are separating them with semicolon. Bring a pot of lightly salted water to boil. Semicolon. We separated one step with the second and the second with the third. So I hope you're able to understand what I'm trying to get at. So we use colons when we want to elaborate something, we want to list something, and we use semicolon when we want to link closely related sentences. Next up, we have exclamation mark. The exclamation mark or exclamation point is used at the end of a sentence or a short phrase which expresses very strong feelings such as surprise, anger, or joy. You can use an exclamation mark to indicate strong feelings or a raised voice in speech. For example, how dare you say that to me? Now, this sentence shows you my anger. How dare you say that to me? And also, my voice is raised. So, we use exclamation mark when we are talking about strong feelings or we are raising voice in speech. Help. Now, help, usually you shout for help, right? And you shout in desperation. Again, we will use exclamation mark for that. If I say shut up, it shows again that I'm angry or annoyed. And whenever you ask someone to shut up, your voice is usually raised. So, again, raised voice in speech, we'll use exclamation mark. Many interjections need an exclamation mark. What are interjections? Interjections are words that are used to express a feeling or make a demand or something. For example, hi, what's new? Now, here, hi is an interjection, and we're using exclamation mark after that. Hi, what's new? Then, ouch, that hurts. So, ouch is like a natural sounding is a natural sound that naturally comes out of us when we are hurt. So we're using exclamation after that. Next up is slash. A slash is used in text to separate alternatives and to separate lines of poetry. So its first use is to separate lines of poetry, and you're not gonna have any use for it. Let's be honest. But as you can see, we usually write poetry like this. But when you wanna quote a piece of poetry or something, we usually, when we wanna place it all in a sentence, we kind of put a slash in between to indicate that these were separate lines. You aren't gonna have any use for it, so you don't have to learn that. So its second use is to show choice. A slash is often used to indicate or. For example, Devon broke the on-off switch of the toaster. On the toaster. So here on off we are using slash to show. Second is dear sir or madam. So instead of writing or, we are using slash. A lot of forms that you fill, you see that son of or daughter of, and there's a slash in between. So that kind of indicates options. You have two options, like instead of using or, they put slash in between. Next up, we have dash. A dash is not the same as a hyphen. The dash or a pair of dashes lets you interrupt a sentence to add emphasis with additional information. So you can use a dash to emphasize an example, a definition, or an information. You kind of use them to interrupt the sentence to add additional information, but this information is usually placed for emphasis. So, for example, two of the strongest animals in the jungle, the elephant and gorilla, are vegetarians. So, here we added additional information, the elephant and gorilla. Up next, we have hyphen. A hyphen is smaller than a dash. You can use a hyphen to show a break in words. A hyphen is used to show a word break at the end of a line. When we are writing something and we don't have enough space on the line, um, and the word is a bit too long, so we kind of divide the word into, we break the word into, but we do place a little dash, I mean hyphen there, to indicate that the rest of the word is in the next line, right? So that is one purpose of hyphen, and the next is that you can use a hyphen in certain compound nouns, and this is something you've already studied. Remember compound nouns? For example, great grandmother, son in law. We are using hyphen to connect all these words and making them compound nouns. Okay, so this is the last one, thankfully. It is ellipsis. The ellipsis, three spaced dots, is used to show that you have left something out of a passage you are quoting. You can also use ellipsis to show a pause in a conversation. You can use ellipsis to show that you have deleted words or sentences from a passage you are quoting. For example, Abraham Lincoln said, "Fourscore and 7 years ago our fathers brought forth a new nation, convinced in the body and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal." Now, here, instead of quoting the whole thing that he had said, we kind of took two sentences which we thought were related instead of putting the whole thing in. And we used three dots, ellipsis, to indicate that we have skipped ahead, we have skipped over, or we have deleted a lot from the quote. So these three dots indicate that. And lastly, we use ellipsis to show a pause or interruption. For example, no, I said, I I need some time to think about it. Now here, ellipsis shows pause. And that's the end. But please do watch it a couple of times because you guys don't know how to use even the most simplest of punctuations. Like, you don't know how to use full stop, a comma, apostrophe. These are the most important ones that you need to know about. The rest of them, it's you can do without. Anyways, if there are any issues, of course we will discuss them in the class. Bye.